Hello everybody, this is Bill Williams. Welcome to another Trahan Creek Outdoors video. What tastes as good as a fresh baked loaf of homemade bread? The answer? I think many of you would probably say not much, if anything. And that's what we have right here, a fresh baked loaf of homemade bread that we're about to slice open. So, let's do it. Everybody seems to like the end piece, and I do too. So that's what we're going for first, this nice crusty end piece here. Let's set it over here on the cutting board, and just do one more for good measure. I might be tempted to eat the second piece, who knows? Kind of think maybe so. All right, that's what your bread looks like. Tilt it up where you can see it. That's what a home-baked bread loaf looks like. On the inside, this is your slice. Makes a great little piece of dinner bread. And the crust, as you can see, is really, really good. And it's nice and warm, ready for some butter or jelly or jam or preserves or whatever you like to have, or maybe just eat the bread. And that's what I'm going to do. Now, thanks for joining me in this video. Stay tuned because coming back, we are going to show you how to make this loaf of bread. During COVID-19, people have a lot of extra time on their hands, are shut in at home, locked down, working from home, and so forth. So you may be eating a lot of meals at home too. And possibly you may want to experiment while you're at home with preparing some of your own breads. I highly recommend it. You will love it. It's not hard to do. And so from a survival standpoint, it is just wonderful to be able to not have to go out, not have to go to a store, not have to be dependent on the store being stocked with bread, because here, many don't have any bread, or they limit it to 1 or 2 loaves, and you just might not can get the bread you want when you need it, but you can always make it. So here's how to do that. I'm going to show you how to make a basic bread recipe. Now, before I do that, let me say that I'm not just demonstrating here, I'm teaching. So if you want to learn about baking breads, then this is the place to be. I'm going to teach you, not just show you. And there's a huge difference. We'll go over a lot of things in this video, and others may be yet to come. But I will also tell you I'm working on my Trahan Creek cookbook, and even possibly thinking about just changing it to nothing but an all breads cookbook. But there is at least a section in it on breads already. So there's so much to learn about bread making, I could write the whole book on it. And we won't cover it all in this video, but we will cover some basics. So here we go. Let's get started. Okay, everybody. We're ready for step 1 of our bread baking project. And what we're going to do here is simply get the dough prepared for its first rise. You will need all of these things that I'm about to show you. You'll need a good sized mixing bowl. You will need a mixing spoon, a wooden spoon or a plastic spoon. Do not use metal. Do not use metal. Wood or plastic only. Hope you got that part. That's very important. You will need a 1 teaspoon measuring spoon and a 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon. You will need a cooking thermometer. You will need a 1 cup measuring cup, and you will need a butter knife, butter. This is unsalted butter, by the way. You will need some type of yeast. We'll talk more about that, but what I'm using is Best Choice. It's a store brand. Fast rising yeast. This is for bread machines, and it's an instant yeast. Comes in a 4-ounce jar. You can get all kinds of yeast, and we'll talk more on yeast in future videos. But the fast rising instant bread yeast is a good choice, and I would recommend that if you're starting in bread baking, this is probably where you need to start. There's other yeast, and we'll, as I say, go over many things in my future bread making videos and in my Trahan Creek cookbook coming up. All right, but anyway, that's the yeast. You will also need some olive oil or some other type of oil that you prefer. And you will need milk. I'm using fat-free milk, which makes a less tasty bread. If you would like to use whole milk, you will get a tastier bread, or 2% or whatever you like. But I don't need extra calories, so we're kind of keeping things on the sly side here. And I'm also using, and you will need, some bread flour. Now for this particular batch, I'm going to show you a little trick to get an extension and not use entirely bread flour. We're going to use part, roughly half, not quite half, bread flour, and then the other flour will be just a general all-purpose flour, and mix it 50-50 roughly. And that will still give you a lot of the qualities of the bread flour, but not as much as if it was 100% bread flour. Bread flour is a little more expensive than the all-purpose. And yes, you can make bread completely using all-purpose flour. That is possible to do. Just not quite as easy to do, though. Bread flour is easier for beginners. So if you want to use entirely bread flour, that's fine. But if you want to do like me and mix it 50-50, you can lower your bread cost a little bit. All right, we'll get started. Oh, one more thing. Hold on. You will also need a cup of warmed water, and we're looking here at a temperature of about 110 degrees, which is absolutely perfect. Anywhere from 110 to a maximum of 130 is the temperature. Now, again, I'm showing you how to do this in this particular manner. There are other ways to do this same exact step. And one is to use cold water, room temperature water, instead of heated water. The heated water will activate the yeast a little faster and get your rise going a little quicker. The cold water will require more time. So since we're just kind of wanting to push this along, I'm using the 110 degree warmer water. All right, now we're ready to get started. And so here we go. What we're going to do is start with 3.5 cups. 3.5 cups of flour. This does not have to be measured precise, but if some of you just can't stand it for doing eyeball measurements, you can take your knife and level it all out, or do whatever you feel comfortable doing. I cook like my grandmother taught me, and she never measured anything, but when she did have to measure something, if she ever did, it was always just an eyeball measurement. Now, that's 2 cups for the recipe, and I do have a little bread flour left in there, so we'll save that for the future. Okay, hopefully you can see here that we're now using all-purpose flour. This, I think, is a Kroger brand flour. Doesn't really matter, but we need to finish up with another 1.5 cups. And for the 1/2 cup, we're eyeballing that measurement too. Now, I could get out a 1/2 cup measure and just dirty up another utensil, but we're just going to go with about a 1/2 cup. It won't be perfect. Doesn't have to be. All right, we got our dry ingredients started right there. With instant bread machine yeast, what you can do is you can put it straight into the dry ingredients. You do not have to mix with water. Repeat, you do not have to mix with water. This is 1 tablespoon right here. This is another 1/2 right here. And you're done with your yeast. You will also need, which I forgot to bring out, a little salt. This is a simple table salt. And you need 10 grams. That's what you actually need. What we're going to do is put in a good, nice, heaping 1/2 tablespoon. And that's probably not quite enough. to make up 10 grams, so we'll put just a little bit more in there. For those of you who want to do bread baking better, it's hard to say, what you may want to do is get you a gram scale so that you can measure your quantities in grams and then follow the actual precise measurements, which should be 7 grams of yeast and also should be 10 grams of salt. That's what should be going in there. We're just, again, eyeballing it. Okay, so we've got the salt, we've got the flour, and we've got the yeast in there for our dry ingredients, and we're just mixing them up a little bit right here. Now, we're going to make this bread here with a little bit of improvement in it. So what we're going to do is take our measuring cup and we're going to put some butter in the bottom of the cup. Just a nice good hunk, about a teaspoon, maybe. Depends on how calorie laden you want your bread to be. The more butter and things of that nature you put in, the richer it is. So for some people, that's what they want. Okay, now it's time for olive oil. We're going to pour some olive oil. We're going to put here about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You saw me measure that carefully, 2 tablespoons. And then you're going to put the cup, not quite to the rim because we got to heat this up a little bit. Put some milk in it. Now, all I'm going to do is just warm that to about the same 110 degree temperature. So we'll just drop it over here in the microwave, which you can't see. And we will, all right, so what's going on here? We'll turn it on and let it heat up. All right. Now, that becomes our base for the liquid, but we're also going to put in some water because you need more than just that 1 cup to make this work. So we'll just go ahead and get started while all that's heating up with mixing our batter, our dough. It's not really batter, it's dough. But anyway, we'll get started on that process using our warmed water, some of it, because it doesn't take too long on the ingredients to warm up there in the microwave. About 45 seconds usually will get it warm enough. We're really just trying to melt the butter over there. All right, it's telling us it's ready. So let's see if it is. It doesn't look too terribly bad. Now we're stirring this with the metallic knife, that's true. But that's fine for just doing that. Okay, it's warmed up. Where's my thermometer? Let's just see what we got here. And check that temperature out. We're running up about 135, 138, maybe 140. That's really more than we need. So before we dump that in there, we're going to dilute it down a little bit with the cooler water. Now we go. And we'll just put that whole cup in there, and you can start putting your dishes over in the sink to clean up, which is behind me. Okay, so here we go back to stirring our dough. I hope all of you can sort of see this and look in there and get an idea of what it's looking like. Most of you have probably made dough. You can actually do this entirely by stirring. You do not have to knead the dough. But I'm an old-fashioned chef. I like to get my hands in it, and I like to knead the dough. You just get better results. So we will knead the dough a little bit. But you don't have to. Now, you can see that we're almost the right consistency with this dough because it's pulling apart from the sides of the bowl, wanting to form a ball on its own. and doesn't need much more moisture, but it does need a little, just a little. And that's probably all that this one is going to need to make a pretty good dough. Okay, I have put down a piece of wax paper and some flour because we're about to turn out the dough onto this wax paper. Maybe you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully you can. But we're just getting it out of the bowl. And it's sticky, so it wants to stay to the bowl. You'll have a lot of that left in. Now go ahead and put that bowl in the sink and let it be some water running in it, because you're going to need to wash the bowl. So go ahead and start getting that cleaner. Get some flour back on your hands. And over here on top of the dough, like that. The dough's warm, which is a nice feel to it. Just roll it like you see me doing here. Let's get that back out of the way. Hopefully you can see me rolling it in the dough to coat the dough. And then you can start pressing it down, folding it over to knead the dough. You can knead it just like this on the wax paper if you want to, or you can flour your hands up good and just pick it up and do it with your hands like this, like a traditional baker would. And of course this is what I like to do because it gives you a better feel for the dough. You do have to keep your hands floured up pretty good though to make that come off for a little while. But it will smooth up. The dough will kind of smooth up. And the saying in the baking business is it gets as smooth as a baby's butt. So that's when you know your dough is ready. If it is that smooth as a newborn baby's butt. Now we might not get this one all the way to that degree because that might take about 5 to 10 minutes of kneading. And I'm not going to give it that much. It doesn't truly have to have that much. It's fine to have maybe even 3 minutes worth of kneading. It's just to get the yeast and the ingredients and everything all fully mixed. That's all you're trying to do. But it's just good to get your dough kneaded. It'll rise better with all the ingredients mixed well. So our dough is warm. It is shaping up really nice. And don't be afraid to work the dough. It's not going to do any good if you don't work it with some strength added to it. Do bake bread every day, you should get good upper body strength just by kneading the dough for about 10 minutes a day. Alright, we got this going well enough here for the moment. So what I have to do next is clean that bowl, and we're almost done for this step. So just hang on and I'll be back. Okay, I have now washed the bowl out. It's nice and clean. And the next stage of this is to take a little bit of the olive oil. Just not a whole lot, doesn't take much at all. Just a little drizzle into the bowl. And then take your hand and coat all the sides of the bowl with the olive oil, just like you see me doing here. Just coat it up, rim, sides, and all. And then what you're going to do is take your little ball of dough that you've kneaded up and just drop it over in the bowl. What we're going to do here, you've got two choices. You can just cover it with something like wax paper and let it sit and rise on your countertop. If you don't want to let it rise on your countertop, which I'm not going to do right now, what I'm going to do is turn on my oven light, just the oven light, not the oven, just the light bulb in the oven, and set it in the oven. there's enough heat that comes from the light bulb that'll help warm this up and make it rise well, a little bit quicker. So that's it. We will wait the required time, which may be several hours, depends on your room temperature, humidity, and other things, but ultimately this will rise on up toward the top of the bowl, and I will be back with you when that step is done.